Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adriana and I'm from 1.5. Today I will explain about quadratic equation. The definition of quadratic equation is a polynomial function or polynomial where the highest power of the variable is 2. So the general form of a quadratic function produces a quadratic equation. In addition to functions, there are also characteristics of quadratic functions. Namely, the general form is fx equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, with the value of a must not be equal to 0. The simplest quadratic function is y equal to x squared, with the highest degree of 2. When plotted in a Cartesian coordinate system, the shape of the graph is a parabola. The shape can vary from sloping to steep. However, the basic shape is a U that can open up or down depending on the value of the A, has a minimum or maximum turning point, and then there is an axis of symmetry that cuts the parabola vertically into two parts, and then has a discriminant with the formula d equals to b squared minus 4 times a times c. There are several characteristics of a quadratic function graph. The first, it has symmetrical graph. The shape is identical to parabola. It only has minimum point or maximum point, not both, and the presence of fx equal to y, which is the dependent variable. Meanwhile, the independent variable is x, and a and b are coefficients which are variables with the highest power, namely 2, and are in the form of equation. Graphic properties. There are so many. The first is open graph, which this property of the graph is determined by the value of f, which functions to determine the result downward or upward. If a little than 0, then the graph will show up. Meanwhile, if the value of a is bigger than 0, the graph results are negative or down. Second, peak point. You can see the property when the graph shows the result downward. So the peak point is at the maximum point. Then, if the graph is pointing up and open, then the minimum is the point. Third is symmetry axis. The peak point on the graph will be divided into two parts because of the axis of symmetry in the quadratic function. This axis of symmetry functions as a mirror line at the graph point. We can calculate the axis of symmetry using the x-axis calculation formula, namely x equals to minus b per 2a. For y-axis intersection point, the definition is the point that will intersect the x-axis. Graphs that have this axis will generally produce a quadratic equation. And fifth, x-axis intersection point. The last property of the quadratic function graph is the x-axis intersection point. It's the peak. The quadratic function is y equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Then you can find the peak point of the graph using the formula minus b per 2a, comma minus b per 4a. And that's all from me for the explanation about quadratic function. I'm sorry if I had mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.